Okay, welcome Wyoming Jaycees to the kickoff of the 2019 PMG competition. And for those of you that don't know, PMG stands for Project Management Guide. This is a tool provided by JCI USA to help us plan and execute our projects and events. Here in a few minutes, Michelle will be giving a training on what the PMG is, how we use it, and how we can take a project idea and turn it into an actual event. Running projects and planning events is something that all of our chapters do on a regular basis. So due to this relevance of project planning and wanting to encourage our chapters to use this PMG, we are launching a competition. And so tonight, March 11th, we're kicking off our competition and doing the training on the PMG. On a to-be-determined date in April, we're going to be doing a marketing training for marketing our projects. In May, we're going to be doing a training on getting sponsorships. And then the end of July, July 31st, your submissions will be due. All of the trainings will take place here live via Zoom, but they'll also be recorded and shared for you to view at a later time. You can submit your PMGs to the Wyoming Jaycees email at wyjcs@gmail.com. The prizes that we're going to be offering is the first place PMG is going to get a $200 sponsorship for their project. Second place will be a $100 project sponsorship. And then all chapters that submit a PMG are guaranteed at least $50. So say, for example, Riverton gets first place, they get $200. Johnson County gets second place, they get $100. But Sheridan and Platte Valley also submit project PMGs. They'll still get $50 for a project. So some of the guidelines: it's recommended but not required to have your project idea approved by the state board. And you can again submit those ideas to our email. Projects should be in one of the following categories. So community impact, any of the community projects that we do. Chapter growth and development. So this could be planning a recruitment open house, something like that. And individual growth and development. So bringing in some sort of speakers, doing a training. One thing I would say is, just a social event that is for your members, that would not be an approved project. So we want you to be, growing your chapter, whether it be recruiting new members, developing your members, or doing community impact. One thing I forgot to list here, you can have multiple submissions per chapter. So you can do it as an individual, you can do it as a team, you can do it as your whole chapter. So that's up to you guys. And also, there was one more thing and then I forgot. This can be a new project idea, or it can be an existing project that doesn't currently have a PMG. So maybe it's a project that you've been doing, but you haven't filled out the PMG form yet. Those will also count. But if you've already done a PMG, those, we want it to be a new PMG. And I believe that's all I have. And Jamie had a question. And yes, we will be sharing all of this information after the fact. And now I will turn it over to past state president Michelle.
Okay, I had to remember to unmute myself, so thank you, State President Lacey. Okay, there, my slides did change. I wanted to make sure that everything was changing. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Michelle Edwards. I am a past state president of the Wyoming Jaycees. I served in that role in 2016 and 2017. And then I was also local president of the Sheridan chapter in 2013 and 2014, and served in several other roles along the way there too, as you all know. And so I've done a little bit of everything when it comes to the Jaycees. So I hope that this is helpful for you guys, and definitely never hesitate to let me know if you have any questions. I'm always willing to help out. So Lacey just kind of went over the guides of how this competition is going to work, but we're going to start here the first round of these trainings talking just about what a project management guide is, the PMG. You will hear that all the time, PMG. So I will apologize in advance, but not really apologize, because I love Dilbert. So there's a lot of Dilbert cartoons in this slideshow. So if you don't like Dilbert, then I'm sorry, but otherwise I think they're pretty awesome. This first one is just funny about project planning, because that's really all this is how to plan a project. And also, for those of you that don't know, I am an engineer, so I really like to poke fun with the Dilbert engineer jokes, because they're so true. And I'm not afraid to admit it. Okay, so you have this great idea for a new project. We have lots of new members in our state right now, and new project ideas are always flowing, but you really have to think about a lot of things. As this slide shows, how much might the event space cost? What kind of a space do you need? What is your event going to be, and what kind of space might you need for it? And will it cost? How far in advance do you need to reserve that space? Do you need food? How much will that cost? How many people are you expecting? Are you going to charge people, and what will that cost be? How many volunteers and manpower, both day of and in advance of the event, do you need? You need tables, chairs, et cetera, et cetera. There's all sorts of things you need to think through before you get started on a project. Actually, I'm going to stop for just a second. We did send out these slide printouts in an email. So if you didn't get that and you're watching this later, let us know and we can always send those to you again. Also in that email was a template for the PMG. So that's really handy. It's a Word document, so you can just fill it right out as you're planning your project. And we'll kind of be stepping through that here tonight. So PMG, Project Management Guide. It's a tool to guide you in your chapter as a resource. This was a document that was created by Jaycees, and I apologize, I don't know the year that they created it, but it was something created by Jaycees specifically for Jaycee projects. So it's kind of unique to us. And it's basically just a mini business plan. It helps you walk through your goals, your manpower, budgeting is a big one, timeline, and evaluation, which we will get into, but that's pretty important too. Not only is this used for Jaycee projects, but it's used for businesses too. We actually have a former member of the Sheridan Jaycees that utilized this to start a new business of his, and he used this same outline to do that. So this is not only a tool that you would use in the Jaycees, but it's something you could use in real life as well. So it's really just 10 steps that you follow, and as much as we don't always like writing things down, it's really important that we write them down, and this PMG kind of helps you guide you through writing that down, because we all know if we write things down, it's a little more true and we're more likely to follow it. So the first 7 steps are actually done before your project. That's the planning part. That's really something you should be doing before you even maybe go to your local board about a new project. It's something you should think through. Now, I know all of our chapters are a little bit different, so that may not completely happen. It might be you take your idea to the chapter and everybody seems kind of interested, so then you go back to your drawing board and think through these first 7 steps. It's going to be a little different for everybody, but it is important to kind of think through those first 7 steps and write them down before your chapter really decides whether or not to move forward with this new project. So step 1 is the primary purpose, and I'm going to actually pull up my project management guide on my other screen here. So if you have that next to you, you might want to pull it out and kind of look at it as we go, because it gives even a little bit more detail. So we want to think about what is the purpose for this project. We have the JC mission statement, which is to provide development opportunities for young people to create positive change. That's our main goal as JCs. And then each of your chapters have their own goals as well. Maybe your chapter likes to focus on projects for kids or something. Your chapter has kind of set those goals. Usually each year it might change a little bit, but you guys all kind of know what your chapters are all about. And so you want to make sure that a project somehow aligns with that mission statement and your chapter goals. So that step 1 is just kind of giving a brief statement. You're not going into a lot of detail here. You're just giving that brief statement on the purpose. So you do want to make sure it's specific, so that the don't, we want to have fun at the M night. And I apologize, the M night's a little bit of an older term too. I should probably change that, but that stands for membership night. Those of you that haven't heard that before, basically just a social fun night. That's just not always specific enough of what you really want to do with your purpose. And then the purpose, that second one, the purpose is to recruit 10 new members and raise $2,000 for charity. So that's kind of giving 2 purposes. And although I know it says it's not specific enough, but it's not specific to how it fits with your mission. Now those are specific things that are more so specific to being goals that we'll talk about later. So you're really trying to, fit that purpose to your chapter. So the next one, the primary purpose is to get 5 new members to the M night. So this is a little bit more because, and actually I'm not sure I love that example, to be honest with you. I think it almost should be, you're trying to get 5 new people to recruit them, recruiting new members. So maybe it's more about recruitment, and that's the primary purpose of your event. And then the next one, to raise funds for Special Olympics. So that can be simple and just, show what you're trying to do with your project. Okay, step 2, project overview. So this is where you can describe a little bit more in detail about what your project is and kind of what you're thinking about it, summarizing the concept, making sure to cover the who, what, where, when, and how. And then something that is kind of specific even on our form here is how this project will benefit the individual member, the chapter, and the community, and thinking about each one of those things individually. And maybe not every project will benefit all 3 of those parties, but you at least want to think through it and strive to do projects that are benefiting all of those people. So as a part of this next project overview is making goals. So this, I'm sure most of you have all heard of, making SMART goals. I just kind of listed the important ones here that I feel like the specific, measurable, and attainable. Because we all know that if we make goals that aren't attainable, it's just difficult to even get there. So, and of course, the measurable, as you'll see in the Dilbert comment below, that's Alice. She is my favorite Dilbert character. It's because she has triangle curly hair like me, and she gets really mad at all the men she works with. Not that I dislike all the men I work with, but it's just always funny to read Alice's comments. So there's some examples there of some goals, involving 10 JCs in the project, net $200 from the project, recruit 1 new member. Those are the kind of things that you want to be specific, measurable, and attainable. So then step 3, the steps to implementation. So here's where you're going to list all the specific steps that you're going to have to do in order for this project to happen. And you probably won't know all of them at the beginning, but this is the part where you really want to think through all those things, like where are we going to have this, and who's going to call that place and see if it's available, and when do we need to get it reserved by. So there's a little table in the PMG that, to help guide you of showing all these things, the task, the finish dates. A lot of times you might have some drop dead dates for certain items. Who is responsible, whether it's a critical task or not, and then potential problems and solutions. And you'll see, we'll talk a little bit more about those coming up here. So step 4 is just the contacts. Usually this is your committee members. Pretty much every project we're going to have a handful of people that are helping put that project together. And you'll kind of have a project manager or a project chair that you want to list there, just putting their contact info and their duties. And then, the goal is that every member of your committee has this document. And so then they've got the contact info for everybody in the committee and can get a hold of anybody if they need to. And of course, your chapter board and your chapter president should also have this. Okay, step 5, tools, materials, and resources. So this Dilbert Karchian says, Alice, I've decided to add a resource to your project. We're human beings, not resources. I love Alice. Anyways, so this is not just your people, this is all the stuff you're gonna need. And, thinking through all the little things like tablecloths or forks and spoons, cups, napkins, those things that always seem to get forgotten when we're doing projects. And if you are obtaining these from someone outside the chapter, like you've got a vendor that, provides tables and chairs for the event, this is really where you want to list them and be sure to include their contact information. The important thing to really think about on not just this tab, but this is where I really start to think about it, is when you're doing this, you need to think that you will never be chairing this project again. And you're going to pass this document off to the next person that decides to do this project. And you have went to Mexico and left the country and can't be contacted. And then someone new has to come in and do this whole project. So you want to list who provides all those things. If you've got a guy that provides your tables and chairs every year, you want his name and phone number right here so that that next person can know who he is and who to call to get those things. So that is the important part here. And here also we're starting in looking at the costs, because we're of course going to be talking about budget coming up next year, and you want to start thinking about what kind of costs you're going to have for all of these materials that you need for your project. So, like I said, budget. So this little Dilbert is actually pretty fitting because it's talking about the scope of your project. I need a budget estimate for my project, but I don't have a scope or a design for it. And so Dilbert throws out a dollar amount, and she says, "You don't know anything about my project." Well, that makes 2 of us. So this is why budget comes a little bit later, because you really need to think through that scope of your project first. All those first 5 steps that we did, you need to think through all of those so that you can try and make this budget. So in the PMG itself, if you have it with you or you're looking at it, there's a little bit of a template there to kind of help you think through the income and the expenses that you'll have to get your budget itemized out. And keep in mind your goals and your list of materials and supplies. And as with any kind of budgeting, you really want to try and be conservative on both sides of the budget. So for income, you want to put into your budget less money than you think you're actually going to get in income. And on the opposite side, for expenses, you'll want to bump that up and round things up and be conservative there so that, you know, your expenses amount looks higher than what you think it's going to be. That way you've got some wiggle room in there, and, you know, you definitely don't want to end up where your expenses are much higher than your income, especially if it's a project that you're not planning to spend any money on, or, you know, not planning to lose money on. Maybe it's a fundraiser for something and your expenses ended up being higher than your income. Okay, step 7, I mentioned this a little bit, but this one really wants you to focus in on those potential problems. This Dilbert says that the biggest obstacle to success on this project is always the boss. Don't put your chapter president on this list like Dilbert shows there. But anyways, you know, we know that not every project is perfect, and there's always going to be problems. And if you can kind of think through those problems before you start it, that can help. I mean, especially those of you that have been in Jaycees a while and maybe you've done other projects or with other organizations even, you know, you can kind of anticipate some of the potential problems you might run into and thinking about what the potential solution for that problem is. The example I've got here is probably one that we all run into every time, is not enough manpower to run the project. Manpower is always an issue. So, you know, think of through your solutions for that. Maybe it's sending sign-up sheets around at numerous meetings before the event. You know, making sure you put that event on everyone's calendar early so they've blocked it out if you really need them. Calling your volunteers before the event, or texting them, or emailing them, reminding them that they signed up to help and that they're needed. So there's lots of, you know, solutions to that, and you just need to kind of think through those things so that you're not scrambling last minute to try and solve all the problems, even though there's odds that, you know, you'll still have problems that pop up you weren't expecting. So that is all step 7. Let's see if okay, well, yeah, so you've done your seven steps. So your next step is to kind of submit your PMG to your chapter president or your chapter board. Or in the case of this competition, this is submitting it to President Lacey, because you've finished the planning phase. So if everything looks good and everybody, you know, your membership decides, all right, let's go forward with this project, this document is going to be very helpful to you because you've already thought through a bunch of it, especially if you have, you know, timelines and all those things in there. But you always need to remember too that it is a living document. So, you know, you're always going to be adding new people and new tasks and new vendors and new things that come up, and really just documenting even your planning process can be helpful to that next person that may take over this project. Okay, so after your event is over, then we have our final 3 steps. And these are the most important pieces of the PMG, and I will admit we are all the worst at doing it. I've been there, and you get done with your project and you've been working for weeks or months on it, and you just go, woohoo, I'm done, and I don't want to think about this project ever again. It's over, and I just want to sleep for 3 days. And I get it. But this part is so important. Like I said, you want to assume that you will not be chairing this project in the future. So that is one big thing, is you were at that event and you know how it went, and you need to document that to help the next person. Recording the successes and failures is just huge. I mean, we can't really improve on things if we don't evaluate and document what we did. And this Dilbert is maybe one of my favorites because Alice says your project failed because there were no women on the team. Women have better communication skills. Every study shows that. Are you listening? Outwardly, yes. Any of you that have a male spouse totally agree with that. Anyways, So step 8, recommendations. So this is, like I said, evaluating how the project went. One of the things I think is really important, and I really should add it to this slide actually, is touching base with all of your volunteers really soon after the event. Even if you can do let's all go out for a beverage after it and chat about it, or go out to lunch, or if it's a wrap-up meeting the next week or something, and really getting that feedback from the people that were your boots on the ground, your manpower, your volunteers, because they probably saw a lot of the event that you may not have because you were running around doing everything. And they also may have gotten feedback from the public if it was a public event or whatever, and just gathering that and documenting it while it's fresh. It doesn't mean you have to write it up all nice and do everything within a week, but really making those notes, because it's amazing how much you forget. You think, oh, I'll remember that next year, we're going to do this different next year, we're going to put this table over here and do these things all differently, but man, you get around to next year and you won't remember that you thought that. So it really is important to document that. So yeah, those changes that would have made the project more successful, note all of those. Any advice you would give to the person that may chair this project next year, whether you're around or not. And put in the good stuff too, all the things that really did work well, and the positive comments that you got from all of the people that were in attendance. So then we'll go back and kind of look at those goals that we established, because that was the reason we did the project, or for the goals that we set. Kind of looking back at that primary purpose and stating whether or not you feel like you met that primary purpose or not. And then listing each goal and the results. And because you set up measurable goals, it should be really easy to fill this part out. Our goal was to involve 10 Jaycees in the project, and hey, 12 showed up. So, 12 helped us plan it. So you met that goal. That one is probably the easiest step of that part. And then your project summary and your wow statement. What was great about it? Did you raise $2,000 for Special Olympics like you had wanted to at the beginning, or whatever really awesome thing that you did? Should the project be ran again? Why or why not? There's definitely that time when your projects will not be successful, and maybe this is the point where you write down, this didn't work, we should never try it again, it was terrible. I will admit, the very first project I chaired, I was a brand new Jaycee and new to the community, and I wanted to do a horseshoe tournament because I liked playing horseshoes when I was a kid, and I just thought, that's something that nobody does around here, that'd be fun. And so I did it, and we had one guy show up and one kid show up, and the kid was the son of one of our Jaycees, so I don't even think that counts, because we had a kids division and an adult division. And it was a complete failure. No one showed up. It was just, we had an adult trophy and a kids trophy, and they each got it, even though I don't even know if we played any horseshoes, because there was no competition. So that was one, it was really good for me, honestly. It was a way to think through, what should I have done differently? Was it the time of year? Was it the advertising? All of these things. And in the end, I decided that I didn't want to run the project again. I guess if someone else in the chapter had wanted to try it, maybe we would have, but I just felt like there were too many things that it just didn't quite work out. But of course, not being too negative in your summary either. You got to find the good things, and there's always that learning experience to be had, even if it failed. So then we're going to go back and look at kind of those benefits on those 3 categories that we talked about at the beginning, your individual member, your chapter, and your community, and just describing the impact that you had on those 3 people. And then just kind of at the end is maybe kind of the meat of other stuff that you'd want to put in there for that next person, you know, all of your final budget. If you had any contracts or agreements, you know, say you had to have an agreement with the hotel that you had the room in, you know, just a copy of that, so that's helpful for that next person. Of course, all of your contacts, specifically anyone that maybe donated tables and chairs or any other vendors that you got, maybe a discount through or something. Pictures of your event, that's always good to share. Press releases, because we should always be doing press releases, and that's something that, you know, the next, as President Lacey mentioned at the beginning, the next training will be more on that media side of things, because we don't shout from the rooftops enough all the great stuff we're doing, so we need to do that more. And then just any other pertinent information that is going to be helpful to that next person. And then also this is like step 11, I guess, is that make sure to give that PMG, that final completed one, to your chapter president, or in the case of this competition, to State President Lacey. But, you know, I also wonder how often we actually do get these all completed, but then the person doesn't give it to anyone and they run off to Mexico and never to be heard from again, and we don't have it. So, you know, I hope that your chapter president is kind of, you know, the keeper of the chapter files and has copies of all of those completed ones. And, you know, it's great to be able to maybe share it with other chapters around our state or around the country if they're interested in doing a similar project, or just if you want to do another project down the road that might be a little bit the same but have some tweaks to it. So those are just really helpful to have. And then here's one last Alice man dig. I'm sorry, I just love it. But Alice says, I can't get any work done because my project team is a bunch of useless mansplainers. Why do men feel the need to explain things to me when I know more than they do? Let me explain it to you, Alice. Men like to show off and feel important. It's the best. I really probably come off as a man hater on this, but I don't. But Alice is just the best. Anyway, there's my contact info, my email address, and I know many of you probably have my cell phone, and you can get it from State President Lacey if you want to contact me that way. And I'm always willing to help on anything. And I think, yeah, that's what I thought. That was the. Oops, I wanted to go back to that last Dilbert. That's the best one. So, okay, I will turn it back over to you, Lacey, unless there are any questions. I think she's trying to unmute herself, maybe. She lost the mute button.
I lost my mouse. I couldn't find it. Get back. Thank you, Past President Michelle, for doing that awesome PMG training. Yes, I will definitely say those follow-ups after the project is something that I struggle with, but definitely know that it's important, especially for turning that project over to somebody else who will be running it the next year. So that concludes our training and our outline of our competition. So if you have any questions on the PMG, you can reach out to Past President Michelle or myself. If you have any questions on the competition, you can reach out to me. I guess I did forget to introduce myself at the beginning for those of you that don't know me. I am Lacey Johnson, the 2019 Wyoming Jaycees State President. Sheridan is my home chapter, but I hope to get out to all of the chapters and you guys this year. So I'm excited for this competition. I hope you guys are excited for this competition. Like I said, planning projects is something that all of our chapters do. So I would just like to encourage you to utilize this tool that we have to help in planning and executing those projects. This is a template that can even be used, you know, outside of your JCs, if your part of another organization that's planning an event. Even as Michelle was talking and doing the training, I was like, I really should put a PMG together for my wedding planning because I'm all over the place and vendors here and there. And so really any event that you're planning, you know, like she said, if you're working on developing your own business and work for a business plan also. So thank you guys for participating, and I will chat with you later. Thank you.